Hi, everybody. This is Alice Shaw.
And I'm Lisa Z. Last week we had a discussion about personality and essence. And if you haven't watched it, I recommend maybe watching it. It's a pretty good one. We talked about how we are not our personality, but we are truly our essence. So today we're going to build on that.
So today we're going to talk about halos. Everybody knows what a halo is, right? Angels have halos. In European art, especially Byzantine Renaissance art, artists painted saints, cherubs, angels, and others considered to be enlightened with a circular ring or a disc above their head or around their head. And they're usually gold or white. Halos are represented in ancient Greek, ancient Rome, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Islam.
So as we've learned through our deep meditation practice is that we are energy and everything around us is energy and we are a part of a whole. And that's what we see. You can take that however you want. But what makes us different? I always had that question. I always thought it was the things that you learned that made you different. Well, it's really not so. What we learned through guidance without being taught, through deep exploration, I like to say, is that we have an energetic system above our heads. So our spiritual information comes in through the crown of our heads. And what we explored and all found and looked at our own is that we have an energetic system above our crown where this spiritual information gets filtered. And at our school, they assigned a name, they called it your creative rings, but you can call it whatever you want. And this is what I like to call it's like our operating system in this lifetime. And this is where our likes, our innate likes and dislikes come from. It's truly where our point of view comes from. It's our true point of view. It's not our learned personality's point of view.
Mm-hmm. So basically we all have halos, whatever you want to call them. So we filter in information differently through that halo. And it's information that just floats around in the air. I have a healer who says that our thoughts are not our own, that she thinks our thoughts don't stay inside of our head, inside of our brain, that they float around. That's why when you think of somebody and they call you, it's because they attached on to that information. And in the workshops that Lisa and I have, we can teach you a really cool experiential that shows you that quickly. So getting back to this idea of information, you can call it news if that's more helpful. That information floats around and is filtered through your consciousness through that halo, and that determines your point of view. And angels, saints, and the like are depicted as pure because they're bringing in pure information.
You have that pure information. I had to sneak that in. A good example of how we have different ways of innate information, I should say, different ways of transmitting innate information is, look at two boys in a family. One is innately more conservative and the other is innately more liberal. These two boys were raised together, same food, education, sports, all of it. But one is more conservative and one is more liberal in all aspects of life. That's innate. That is true essence, and that is their filtering system. We would think that would be personality. I guess in adulthood, we would look at that as personality based on things that have happened through them through societal issues. Like, one wants to protect their money, they become more conservative. One has a big heart, they, are more liberal, just using that loosely. but a lot of it, you know, our essence, as we've talked about before, is gets masked by fear. And I could talk about this real briefly, like, you know, Alice and I have been doing what we have been doing, reading people with our clairvoyance for 10 years, but we're very quiet about it. So I'm sure it's a shock for many of you who know Alice out there, or Alice is clairvoyant. Well, you know, it was based on concerns that of how this would look out there, or, you know, but we both have this drive. It's not like we're creating this because we think it's cool. We're creating this because we know that there's a need for people to unmask. And this is why we created the workshops where we host, because everyone has a true essence, and your true essence is way more rad than the creation that you've created about yourself.
Yeah. So a lot of people start going into a meditation practice to help themselves. And it's only after people help themselves that they realize that they can help others. They can help show people a different way. And this is the place that Lisa and I got to, and that's why we've created this series, but also the workshops and our programming.
Mm-hmm.
So your point of view can be either negative or it can be positive. It can come from love or from fear. And as we mentioned before, most of the negative aspects are learned behavior on what we could call programming. It's the things that we've learned, the media, the education, it's how we defend ourselves. You know what I'm talking about.
So the energetic system that we have above our heads, or like our school likes to call it creative rings, are there because we are here to create. I wish I knew exactly why we were here, but what I do know is we were here to create. And a lot of people have a limiting belief about this when we even have discussions about it. Well, I'm not creative. People, of course, this is societal programming. They're thinking that they have to be some master artist. Well, yes, artists make art, and that's an act of creation. Kids create by play acting, or create by playing in the woods and enacting scenes. Some people create by creating lots of money, and there's plenty of workshops out there to create abundance. And this is a form of creation. And then the simple things are creations. And that brings me to a story of the last year I spent with my son before he went off to college. And it was a time when, you know, I started to love him in a different way, to show love in a different way, because it was appropriate, and he was turning into a man. I put every ounce of my true essence into the creation of making his sandwich for lunch. Every little nuance had meaning. It was like the movie, like Water for Chocolate. I mean, when I told Alice the story, I actually did get some tears in my eyes the first time. It was that powerful. And that's an act of creation. And that act of creation brought me joy and contentment. And truly what that was an act of love. And I wasn't doing it for validation, but oh boy, it did feel good when he'd come home and go, Mom, that was the best sandwich ever. What did you do to it? Because every layer was different, and it was a different sandwich every day. So that's an act of creation. So you don't have to be creative to create. It's just creating. And what that does, I'm going to add that in, is it brings you into a neutral space. When you're acting from creation, you're acting from a neutral space. And there's none of the layers of what you've built around you in front of that.
It also brings you into present time. Yeah. when you are really intent on creating something like that. And I think a lot of artists know that place when you are completely present and there's nothing else, no worries, nothing pulling you. You're just there doing that act of creating. And true essence unblocked by personality is expression. Mm-hmm. If we spent more time unearthing the personality that we've learned and absorbed and getting rid of that shell, just think of what the world would look like, and think about how you would feel without that.
there's many ways to create. Your true essence is your original creation birthed from love. Count the ways you create.
Thanks, everybody.